Greetings, students, and welcome to this episode of The Professor Travel. I am your host, The Professor Travel, coming to you from, well, I would normally be coming to you from Southern California, but I'm on the road, as you can see from behind me. I'm staying at a hotel right now while I'm visiting and doing some work up north, but I had enough of a time to just take a quick lunch and get one of these interviews out for you. Again, the goal of the Professor Travel channel, the vlog, the podcast, is to make sure to help you learn more about different travel destinations, to help discuss more as a community, to hopefully help you to travel more yourself, and ultimately to enjoy life more. Now, you can reach me on a variety of different social media sites, including my website at theprofessortravel.com. You can also find me on YouTube and on Facebook at The Professor Travel. On Instagram, you can find me at the_professor_travel. On Twitter, you can find me at theprofessortr1. And if you're a blogger, you can find me on Blogspot at theprofessortravel.blogspot.com. Today, we have a really special guest with us today. For my students, our visiting professor today is Fran Gower. Fran, do you want to wave hi to my students?
Hi, everyone.
Thanks so much for joining us, Fran. It really means a lot to me. For the benefit of my students, can you tell us a little bit about your background, maybe some of your training that you've done, as well as maybe some of the places that you've traveled?
Sure. Well, my background's basically in the outdoors. I went to college to become a park ranger, which I did, and then went into natural resource police. So I have a true love of the outdoors, and I really like to travel in the outdoors. I've been pretty much traveling off and on all my life with my parents, and then as I've retired, I've done a number of different trips. Been fortunate enough with the USS Saratoga Association, they do reunions every year, that we go someplace new every year. So like this year we were in South Carolina, in Charleston. Last year we were in San Antonio. I've been to San Diego. I've been to Dearborn, Michigan, Saratoga Springs, New York. Plus I've done a number of cruises with, did Alaska last year, which was absolutely awesome. Highly recommend it. Did a cruise up into the New England area a couple of years ago, and I was fortunate enough, my cousin was in the Navy at the time and got to do what they call a Tiger cruise on the USS Enterprise for 4 days, 2 nights, 3 days, I guess it was.
Wow,
Back
that's really impressive.
Yeah, that was in 2011, so that was really cool. So I like to get out and see different things. I've actually been to Europe once when my aunt and uncle were stationed over there for 2 weeks in Belgian area and got to see Normandy. So done a little bit of traveling.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that with us. So for purposes of this vlog and podcast, you decided to go on a cruise. Is that correct?
Yes. We, a number of us that have been kind of cruising together the past couple of years decided to take a cruise, it's November, let's get out. And we were looking at a year ago, went to the Bahamas, and really had a nice relaxing time and got to have some nice warm weather because back home it was 23 degrees.
Oh goodness, no, don't like that. I used to, just for the benefit of my students, I actually used to live near Fran over in Maryland. I used to live in Columbia, Maryland. And so we were actually on the same bowling league together. So
absolutely.
Yeah, so it was a great opportunity to reconnect with Fran here, and just, I saw that she had posted information about travel, and I wanted to say, oh my gosh, I know my students would love to learn more about that. So again, thank you, Fran, for stepping in and facilitating this. This is great.
Absolutely.
So when you're working with the group that you work with for the USS Saratoga, how far in advance do you guys start to create these events and do these kinds of events?
Well, for example, with the last reunion, they decided 2 years out pretty much where the next reunion is going to be, because it does take some planning. When you're looking at 200, 300, 400 people coming to a reunion, you've got to plan ahead. So I know next year's in San Diego, and I think the following year's in Indianapolis. But they have a group that'll get together and they plan everything. And we also, they'll bring in a group called Reunion Planners, and they'll organize trips, different day excursions for people to go on, which is just really cool.
Nice. It's good to know. I'm actually planning a family reunion in the relative future. So knowing about reunion planners might actually help me to look into some different things that we may want to actually be doing in the future too. So thank you for sharing that.
Certainly.
Now, you went down to the Bahamas as part of this cruise, is that correct?
Yeah. We left out of Baltimore and we were at sea for 2 days. It was a little bit rough because the storm had passed by a previous day or two before we got out there, and then went to Nassau, was there for a day, and then went to Coco Cay, which is Royal Caribbean's private island, which was really nice. They actually have the largest swimming pool in the whole Caribbean area, which is really cool. And then we traveled a day to Florida. We went in at Port Canaveral. Got back to the U.S. The weather was wet and it was cold. And then traveled one day up into South Carolina, up into Charleston, which was really neat because I'd just been there the month before. And then spent 2 days coming back. And fortunately, the captain had been watching the weather and they got us back into the Chesapeake Bay before that storm hit that was coming in right behind us.
I've had to outrun some storms before, so I absolutely understand exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And for the purposes of this, because Bahamas was the only place that you went outside the U.S., you didn't really need to have any like visas or travel medications or anything like that, correct?
I didn't need travel medication. I handled the waves well, but you do have to have your passport.
Okay.
Because they are going to check you when you get on the boat. And when we got into Florida, the customs does a random check to make sure that everybody on a cruise ship's legitimate. So literally we get to Florida, we all have to get off the boat with our passport, including part of the crew, and then they check us and then verify that yes, we're legal, we've got our passport, and then we could get back on the ship again. So that was a little rough at 6:30 in the morning to meet customs, but they were nice enough. The crew was good. They had donuts and coffee and hot tea there because I'm a hot tea drinker, so that was nice. And they were, for the inconvenience, they were trying to be very accommodating.
That was nice of them. So let's start to talk about the vacation then, okay?
Okay.
In the pre-packing process, so you've just got a couple of days before you're going, what do you need to buy? What kind of clothes are you packing for this trip?
Well, the one thing I think about, one is, what is the weather going to be? So I got on the Weather Channel on my phone app and started really, what were they projecting, so I knew whether I needed to bring pants, I needed to bring shorts. For me, suntan lotion, absolute must, because I will fry like a crispy critter. So I had to make sure, because we left here, it was about 45, 50. We get to the Bahamas, it's 85. And if I hadn't had suntan lotion on, I'd have been very red. So that's one thing I'm thinking about in pre-packing. And then you need to think about too, for me, what was I going to be doing in terms of excursions? Now, this time around, we weren't doing anything that required a bathing suit or sand shoes, or I didn't have to think about, hey, I'm going kayaking like I've done before, where I need to bring a pair of gloves because I always wear gloves when I kayak. So it was just a matter, the big thing was looking at what was the weather and trying to pack for that.
Did you have to bring any like bug repellent of any sort or anything like that?
And what?
Like mosquito repellent?
I did not. I didn't even notice that there were really any bugs bothering me at the Bahamas, so that was nice. The big thing was just trying to deal with the extreme change of temperature. So water's nice, but I will bring along flavored water packets that I get at Walmart to put in water bottles, which is kind of nice because if you're on the cruise ship, you get water, you get fruit juices, iced tea, and the adult beverages, where sometimes all I want is like Kool-Aid, just nice cherry flavored stuff. So I'll bring that along. Something extra that I'll bring. Another thing I think about too, because I do collect shot glasses, is I've got a plastic box that I will put stuff in it. It's a watertight container, but it's nice and square and fits in my suitcase nice. So if I bring, say, some packaged crackers, it'll fit in there, and then it gives me space to put a shot glass or two in. And I've got a friend or two who collects it too. And any small things that I get can go right into that container.
Excellent. Just to mention my students really quick, something that you'll note when you're going on cruises, and a lot of the cruises are starting to move in this direction, is that they're moving to lessen their carbon footprint. And as part of that process, a number of cruise lines aren't even, promoting a lot of drinkware in some cases anymore, like bottles for bottled water. So what I would encourage you to do is if you have an empty water bottle, like a metal one or something like that, that you can bring with you, bring that along. So that way, whenever you're on the ship, wherever you go around, you always have this water bottle with you. You can fill it up with water. Like Fran was saying, you can put your drink in there, just carry it around wherever you're going. Doesn't really matter. And just rinse it out at the end of the day. So just a pro tip there for you guys. So,
Oh, and it's very smart one. I didn't think of that because I did take a hydro flask with me. I had a nice long one with me so I could keep stuff cold.
you know what? I didn't even know about it until someone mentioned it to me. They're like, have you ever thought about bringing an empty water bottle? I'm like, are you talking about like a plastic water bottle? And they're like, no, like one of the ones that you do when you go to your workout. I'd never thought about it. It's something so simple, but it's one of those things that you never really think about. And it's like, but there's a lot of things when you're in the pre-packing stage that you're like, oh, I totally wish I would have brought that thing with me. For me personally, I always try to bring a little variety of travel medications, Band-Aids, things like that, just in case, because you never know. You're always kind of curious about that type of stuff.
Yeah, and if nothing else, always pack Benadryl in case you do have an allergic reaction, because that's something that I have to be careful of with just bugs, for example, or a bee, or, I'm allergic to certain medications. So if I get sick and they have to give me something, if I have a reaction, then I at least have Benadryl with me.
That's good. Yeah. Now, in this particular case, you didn't have to fly out of anywhere. You actually left from the cruise port in Baltimore, correct?
Yes, which was a really nice change of pace because every place else that I've cruised out of, I've had to fly. So yeah, I'm 20 minutes south of the harbor area, so it was really nice. There was a whole group of us traveling, but 3 of us were meeting in one location as satellite office for one of the other people, left our cars there, and then we drove on up to the harbor and parked there. The one thing to kind of keep in mind is they do charge you to park there, which, okay, that's fine. But it's very convenient, and getting in and out of the harbor area in Baltimore it was so easy. There's plenty of people there directing traffic. There's carts there where they unload your luggage right there. You don't have to worry about carrying it through the check-in. They take it and go. The one important thing you have to remember, though, is that you print your tag out and you put it on your luggage so that they know what cabin and what deck you're on. Otherwise, there's no telling where your luggage is going to go.
Yeah, super important. And I shared with you, I had a little bit of an issue with my luggage on a recent cruise that I had gone on, where we had left the luggage off with at the cruise port area. We didn't actually leave it with porters. We just put it on to this, to give it to these people to put it on a conveyor belt. And when it arrived at our room, one of our pieces of luggage had been completely destroyed. To their credit, the cruise line really took good care of us and actually reimbursed us well above and beyond for that, and really helped us. They didn't want to spoil our trip, so I was really happy about that whole process. So how was the baggage situation there? Did you go through porters, or did you just take it up to the front of the line?
Like I said, we dropped it off. Now I carry my camera with me in a backpack, so that stays with me. And when I go through the check-in process and they screen you before you get on, it goes through with me. But the rest of the baggage, you give it to them. They put it on a cart and they'll get it to your room. And you have cabin stewards, so they'll make sure that your bag gets there. Now I was fortunate this time around. My bag got there before everybody else's to our room after we got on the ship, but eventually within 2 or 3 hours your bag shows up, so it's not been a problem. And like I say, with carrying my camera, it's kind of like when you go on an airplane, they're still going to check you, scan you, make sure you got all the documents. They don't want you bringing on certain items, which with Royal Caribbean, they're very good listing out what items you cannot bring on that ship. They're very particular about that. So you walk through the scanner just like the airport, and they'll scan you and check you out and question anything that's in your bag. And then you go ahead and start walking on the ship. So it's a very easy process. Now our ship was a bit smaller, so you're only running about 2,500 people on the ship, but a bigger ship, it might take a little bit more time, but it's you get in and you get out.
And Royal Caribbean has the largest ships actually right now. As of the making of this video, the largest ships in the world are, for the most part, the Royal Caribbean fleet, like the Oasis of the Seas and the Symphony of the Seas, and those ones down. Which specific ship did you end up taking when you were leaving out of Baltimore?
We were on the Radiance,
The Radiance of the Seas?
which is, it's a smaller, older ship. But it's still, for what we needed, it was fine. I've been on the Oasis when we did a Caribbean cruise 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Over Easter weekend. If you don't like kids, don't go Easter weekend. But it was really nice because there was so much to do, and if you didn't want to be on top of people, you could spread out. So the bigger ships are nice, but I like the small ones too.
Oh no, yeah, there's definitely, depending upon, and I'm going to walk this back for just a second, because many of my students will come to me and say, which ship is better? And it's really up to you. It's really going to be decided on what you want. Do you want kind of that more intimate experience where you're in a smaller ship and you have more personalized attention? Do you want a larger ship where you're basically on a floating city and there's always something to do on something like that? Yeah. Or do you want something kind of in the mid-range where it's kind of a little bit of the best of both? It really is going to be up to you to decide what works best for you in that specific situation. The one other thing I want to touch on before we move into the actual cruise itself is what you had said, carrying your camera with you. There's a tip I got from another travel blogger that was out there, which was carry a laptop bag with you, with your laptop, your travel medications, especially the ones that you cannot leave behind or you don't want to check on something, any cameras, valuables that you have. And then also, just out of curiosity as well, maybe you want to bring a change of clothes and just put one change of clothes in that bag in case, under the worst case scenario, they lose your bag, and now you have something at least in the meantime to wear. Or if you get on the ship early, the weather's fantastic. Let's say you're flying out of Florida and you want to take that time to really enjoy that first day. Guess what? Bring a swimsuit with you. Don't worry about the towels. They have the towels on the ship, so that's not something you're going to need to worry about. But have an extra swimsuit and bring that with you in that bag. So that way, if it takes 4 or 5 hours for you to get your luggage, or if there's a problem with your luggage where it takes even longer than that, you at least have this change of clothes and you have the bathing suit so you can kind of still enjoy your vacation for the most part at the beginning. So, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that's a great suggestion, especially like you say, if your suitcase gets lost, then you're a little more prepared.
Yeah, exactly. Now, as far as, we're going to skip over pre-vacation destinations because, again, you were leaving right out of Baltimore. What kind of accommodations did you have on the Radiance of the Sea?
Well, there were 3 of us in the room, and we got what they call a junior suite. Our suite was actually on the very back of the ship, on the stern of the ship. So, we could see where we had been very well. It was nice enough because there were 2 twin beds in there. There was a sofa that folded out. The bathroom was much larger than what you would get in some of the traditional standard rooms. We actually had a bathtub in there. In other ships I've been on, we had been in, the shower basically was like a tube. It was tiny and it was round, so it was very small. So it's nice to have a little bit bigger bathroom. And there was more space to put your stuff in, so you didn't have to live out of that suitcase. And we had a balcony, which was nice. So we had a couple of chairs out there. We could just sit and relax. So it was nice for what it is. And every time I've cruised, I've always had a balcony, and it gives you that sense of more space so that you're not feeling like you're crammed in. I mean, some people, if you want to go cheap, get an inside room, get a room down low. But if you want to kind of wake up in the morning and see the sunrise, which is really kind of cool to see when you're at sea, you want to have a balcony. And I don't think I'd ever want a room without a balcony.
Yeah, and just like with the style of the ship or the size of the ship, it really depends on what the student or what the viewer or what the person who's traveling really wants. You can have those people who, hey, I just want to, I just sleep wherever I'm going to sleep. Give me an inside cabin, I'll be fine. And that's fine for them. Other people might want to travel a little bit more. Hey, you know what? This is my vacation. I want it to be kind of posh. I want it to be kind of luxurious. Let me get a suite. Let me get one of the owner suites. Let me get something really huge. Or maybe you want something just in between where it's like, hey, I just want to see the ocean, but I don't necessarily want to pay for the price of a suite. You can maybe look at an ocean view room. So again, there's lots of options for you depending on your budget, depending upon your needs, and where you want to go through that process. So again, great points to make. Let's talk a little bit about the itinerary. So you had several different locations. Starting from Baltimore, was your first stop Nassau?
Yes, yes.
Tell me a little bit about what you did in Nassau.
Well, in Nassau, just kind of prior to doing the cruise and all, one of the people, Lisa, her and I went to college together, and sorority sister, that we had touched base. Hey, what cruise? Things would you like to do? And because the other group's kind of a little bit older and just want to relax, so we always want to go and do things. So we had talked about it, and we did a excursion out of Nassau, which was glass bottom boat. So we had a chance. Unfortunately, I don't recall the price, but it wasn't overly expensive. But it was a couple of hours. We met the guide by the ship, and it was us and a bunch of other people going on it. And we got a nice little tour of the harbor area. The guide that was on the boat, local, knew the fish, knew the harbor area, which was nice. It wasn't one of these where, oh, yeah, that's a boat or this or that. He explained things. He knew the rich people's homes along the waterway because there's a lot of them down there. Johnny Depp, Oprah Winfrey, Tom Cruise, and a couple of other folks down there. Yeah, which was really neat. So you can point them out. Not that any of us knew for sure they were the right ones, but so you got a nice little tour of the harbor area, and then they went out closer to where the water was a bit more shallow, and then we all went down to the bottom of the boat. There was probably maybe 20, 25 of us on the boat, and down below in the bottom of the boat, they had an area where it had been cut out. Now, I don't know that it was plastic. I think it was more a thick plexiglass, but you could see the fish down underneath, which was really cool because as opposed to seeing them in an aquarium, they're in their natural environment swimming around. And they just kind of darted back and forth. And it was just, for me, loving the outdoors, it just, the fish are going by, and the parrot I think it was a parrotfish, and then there was what they call a sergeant fish because he's got 3 stripes on them, and a bunch of others just swimming around their natural environment. And there was just kind of neat to see what the bottom looked like too. So you kind of, if you're into nature, that's a really cool thing to do. And then coming back, the pelicans were out flying and such, but that was just a really neat, easygoing, didn't require a lot of stress or strain excursion.
Now, I will say I've heard some things about Nassau as far as, and let me see if I can get this correct, maybe the aggressiveness of some of the merchants there, as far as trying to sell you things. Did you experience that on your trip at all?
Well, yeah, strangely enough, one place we were walking by, and it was one of these places that sells cosmetics and skincare stuff. I'd run into the company down in New Orleans when I was there in August, and they're very aggressive. Oh, we got this great product for your skin and that kind of stuff. But other than that, I really didn't notice it in the Nassau area. I mean, because we didn't wander around too much. We stopped at a local place, got a beer, and just hit some places and picked up stuff. So it wasn't as bad as when I was at the Bahamas before over in Port Lacaya, where, they're hawking at you. They're trying to sell you stuff. Okay. This was much more of a typical merchant area like you'd find here in the U.S. But yeah, I've experienced that in other places.
Well, maybe they've taken a step back. Again, I know that because of the hurricane that hit the Bahamas, Hurricane Dorian, maybe they're kind of thinking, we want to retain these tourists and these tourist dollars here as much as possible. So kind of ease back on a lot of that aggressive, mercantilism in order to keep the customers around and happy. So maybe that's something the authorities came in and did, or maybe it's just their style, their mindset. And it's just like maybe some places that's more aggressive in the Bahamas, and other places it's not. So
yeah, I think like you say, it depends on the area that you're in. But if you're in more of a straw market, that they have at Labadee, which is Royal Caribbean's private island, there's a small section where they had shops, and they were very aggressive. And I don't like that, and I think most Americans really don't like that. And I do recall having a conversation with somebody that was either on the ship or off the ship at one of the places that said they've tried to get people to back down on that because it turns people off. Yeah. So maybe that's why we didn't see much of it.
It is a cultural dynamic. And I mean, I know that that's just maybe how they do a little bit of their negotiating out there. I know when I've gone around the world, whether it was to Bangkok, Thailand, or to Venice, Italy, I've been able to barter with them. And that's something that when you travel outside the United States, you see a lot of people doing bargain shopping. And if you just walk away from them, you know, usually they'll compromise with you pretty quick because they want that business. So again, yeah, it's really kind of cool, and you can maybe get some great deals about it. So yeah, so and by the way, speaking of private islands, so apart from Labadee, the next location we went after this was Coco Cay, which is another private island from Royal Caribbean. So tell me a little bit about. Obviously, you saw they have the largest pool in like the Caribbean there. What other things did you do while you were on Coco Cay?
Well, Coco Cay was really neat because the hurricane missed them totally, which was nice. So the island wasn't damaged at all. And there was another ship in there with us the same day. But we wound up there. We did an excursion. It was this balloon flight, basically. They've got a giant balloon that's tethered to the ground, so it's not going to float away. Okay. And it takes you 400 feet up in the air for about 10, 15 minutes or so. But it gives you a chance to kind of see the whole island, because you not only see where the pool is and where you can go down by the water and swim in, you know, the ocean water, but it also gives you a chance to see kind of where people live on the island, because they've got people that stay there, and you get to see the additional sections that they're getting ready to add in the construction. But it really gave you kind of a neat perspective, because for me, I'm looking at, God, there's another ship here and that's going to be crowded. But when you look down, it really didn't give you a sense of the place was crowded. But it was neat to kind of go up, gives you a different perspective of what you're going to see there when you're walking around.
I think I'll leave that adventure level up to you and my husband, both of which like that. I'm terrified of heights. I get vertigo it's kind of weird because I can be on an airplane. Like I just flew here to California. I didn't have a problem with that. But put me in an unprotected balloon or like I want to say about a little over a year ago, I went to London, and they have the tallest building in London is called the Shard. And at the very top of the Shard is an observation deck, which is kind of cool. And you have this glass in front of you, so you're pretty protected. You're not going to go anywhere. But some parts of the top of the Shard are exposed to the open sky, and so for a person who has vertigo, just looking up, and it gives you that sense I'm going to fall up, or something. It's a really weird feeling. So yeah, it's just you guys can do that adventure stuff on your own. But I'm glad you had fun, though. I mean. How was the food over there?
The food actually was good. One of the girls with our group wound up getting a cabana for us. So we had an individual steward that took care of several cabanas, so she would get us stuff. But that menu was kind of limited, and I kind of just want to get out and walk around. I wasn't much for the water, but they had a place where, because your food's covered on the island as part of your package, and they had a really nice selection where they were serving the bulk of the food. I wound up getting tacos, which were just incredible, and I had a choice of 3 different fillings, all kinds of toppings. They were selling, or they were having hot dogs and hamburgers. There was chicken. If you wanted a salad, you're into the healthy stuff, you could go graze at the salad bar. So there was ample food around. There was ample stations to get water or iced tea. They had fruit juices, which is really nice because you're 85 degrees and you really kind of need to put some of that fluid back in you. Yeah. So I might have hit it at an off time, but it wasn't, with 2 ships there, I didn't have a problem getting food. It was plenty of space because people were spread out enough, so it's not like the dinner bell rings at noontime and everybody goes rushing. You kind of graze through when you wanted, and once we got on the island till I think we had to be off, our group left at I think 4:30 was our boarding time. You could have eaten the whole time, which was nice. So if you can get a little now, a little later. It was really nice with the young lady we had for the cabana, because the rest of the group ordered food there. Well, then she brought over some extra items. Then a little bit later, she wound up bringing us some fruit on skewers, which was really cool because it had fresh cut cantaloupe, watermelon, muskmelon, and strawberries on it, which is really nice. You're sitting there in the afternoon, it's hot, you don't want to go out in the sun anymore, and it's like, wow, this is a nice, refreshing treat. So one thing I will share, though, it's even though the staff is there, and same with on the ship, you still kind of want to keep in mind to tip them. Oh, yeah. And don't be cheap on the tipping. Yeah, the ship collects some of that stuff, but something like that, she went well above and beyond and helping us and making sure we had water, because we had a cooler there that she kept full of water, and just really nice.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you for sharing that. Before we move on to the next destination, I want to ask you a little bit about the food also on the ship, because we haven't really touched on that. Now, when you were going out for dinners, were you primarily doing the main dining halls, or did you go to a specialty place, or did you go to the buffet area?
We've actually, I think, hit all three, but the big thing that we've done, because of a couple of folks in the group, they want to do my time dining, which is fine. That's going and eating in the dining room. With that, you can just walk in and they'll seat you. But if you know that you've got a group or you want to have that every night, plan ahead, get that set before you even get on the cruise ship. That's really kind of important. The same food that's on the menu at Mind Time Dining in the dining room is the same as on the buffet. Yes. But it's nice where you're in the dining rooms, because they're bringing you the food. It's the same wait staff night after night after night. So that makes it nice. And on the menus, there are certain things that they'll have listed that are only for that night. And then they have what they call the classics, that are things that are there every night. So if you want that French onion soup tonight, it'll be there on Saturday night, for example, because it's one of the classics. And Royal Caribbean, they can make very good French onion soup. Oh, yes, so, yeah, so that was nice. And then the thing is you get a choice if it's like a 3-course meal. Well, if you don't want something on the 1 course, you're not forced to do that. But if you want 2 of something, you pick 2. Or if you want 2 entrees, you can do that. Just make sure that you eat everything. Don't waste the food. That's kind of really important. Now, as far as the buffet section, keep in mind a lot of people do that. So you kind of have to deal with some crowds, especially if it's lobster night. Oh, yeah. Everybody's going to make sure they get lobster. And we've had it where we've each had 2 lobsters, and they're lobsters. They're not huge, but they're good. In fact, the one night we did do one of the specialty restaurants. We went to Giovanni's, I believe it was.
Oh, the steakhouse, yeah.
And I had a very nice, we had the lobster, and then, oh gosh, I just lost the cut of meat that I had. It's the filet mignon, which had the smaller size one, absolutely incredible, tender, thoroughly enjoyed it, had my lobster. I was done for anything more. I think I skipped the dessert that night. But those, through the person we also work with our travel agent that Cindy knows, they kind of comp us a meal at one of the restaurants, so we haven't had to pay for it. But if you were just going as a regular, on a regular cruise and all, you would have to pay for those. Those are above and beyond. But the food is awesome. The wait staff is good. It's just incredible. And then, excuse me, with the buffet, it's open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They do take a break when they start changing over the foods, but there's always plenty of food. And it's just amazing how fast, if something's out, turn around and they're bringing it back in. And the staff is usually very attentive and just really kind of neat to see some of the process that they go through.
Very nice. All right, so we'll talk more about some of the things on the ship, but let's move over to Port Canaveral now.
Okay.
So Port Canaveral, you landed at. What did you do when you were there? Because I mean, I imagine there are probably some people who could go up to Orlando since it's not too terribly far from there. But Cape Canaveral on its own is a pretty interesting place to want to go to.
Oh, absolutely. We had pretty much decided as a group we were just going to take it easy, and relax a little bit on it there. So we didn't book an excursion, but there were 3 people in our group that wound up going to Disneyland or Disney World for a short time. But yeah, Cape Canaveral wasn't that far away. Once the clouds lifted, because it was kind of overcast and a little bit rainy, you could see the big white building off in the distance, way off in the distance, but it was still kind of neat to see. But we wound up just hanging around the port, basically. Not that there's a lot there, but there are some local restaurants, and there's a center called the Exploration Center. Well, Lisa, who was with our group, she couldn't really walk far because she'd had foot surgery, so I'm not an Uber person, but Cindy could get an Uber for us, and we Ubered over there and then went up in that. And it's kind of a neat building because it gives you a view of the whole port area, gives you some history, a couple of videos talking about how the port came to be what it is there. There are a number of cruise ships that do go in there and have their different locations there. And then it talks about the wildlife, the history of the area. So it was really kind of, I think it was $6 a piece for us to go through and see. It was really kind of neat because you got just a snippet of local history as opposed to going on a long, boring trip, but it was enough that you could retain it and see some old things and that kind of stuff. And then we decided to walk over to this restaurant called Fish Lips, which was Fish Lips. Didn't know fish had lips. Yeah, it's a seafood place, nice, kind of local place. But we had 3 different appetizers. They were good. The beer was good, which is important. I had, unfortunately, I don't remember, but it was a local brew because I like to try local stuff. Mm-hmm. And sat there and watched the water, watched the pelicans go by. And it was just nice and relaxing.
Nice.
And then we wandered back to the ship and just kind of hung out on the ship for a while.
Sounds like a fun day. I mean, that sounds like a really jam-packed but really fun day. So, I mean, and that's ultimately why you go on these things.
And I know Lisa had talked about they had, on the ship itself, they have a list of activities that happen every day. Yeah. They give you a kind of a order of the day. It's a 4-page document usually of all kinds of stuff that's going on, what the weather's going to be for the day, all the activities. So there were a couple of things, but we're like, yeah, I'm just going to sit and relax. Yeah. That's what vacation's for.
You know what? That's a really good point. And one of the things I want to stress to my students is just because you have a port that you're going to doesn't necessarily mean you even have to get off the ship. If this is your vacation, you make it what you want it to be. And if you don't want to get off the ship for whatever reason, that's up to you. I'll give you a little bit of an example too. So we just took a cruise in August. We were going around the Mediterranean and we made all these different wonderful places. And so on the day, so I want to say on the 6th day of the cruise, we went to Dubrovnik, Croatia, which is spectacular. And they filmed Game of Thrones there, and it was really, really hot. And I was being a total idiot and didn't drink enough water. So anyways, I ended up coming down with what I felt was a heat stroke. So the next day, myself and my husband have this itinerary because we're in this new country of Slovenia, and it's a 9-hour excursion. And I'm like, oh man, I don't think I can do this. I feel just terrible right now. So the cruise line was actually they were very accommodating. They were able to get my ticket to someone else, and I was reimbursed for the cost of that, which is great. That being said, I spent the entire day pretty much in bed, and I would just go up occasionally to like the buffet, get something in my stomach, then go back and take a nap. Go out. They had some trivia going on, so I was just kind of walking around the ship, not doing too much, just kind of chill and trying to take care of myself, a little bit of self-medicating at that point. So I think it's really designed, if you want to just take a book with you and just chill on the deck or in the library, and most places do have a library, most cruise ships do have a library these days, feel free to do that. It's your cruise. You make it what you want it to be. So anyways, I just wanted to touch base on that really quick. And while you were on the ship, and let me just pivot here for just a moment, did you happen to see any shows at all or any entertainment?
We did. I'm trying to remember. They had their singing group did a kind of a retro 80s night and singing and dancing, which was really cool because if you know the tunes, you're sitting there humming along with it and such. I think that I recall we went to one other one. I don't remember what it was, but it was just, the shows are nice and they usually will have 2 a day. They had a comedian, but I was just kind of pooped from the day and just like, I didn't want to deal with crowds and get the seat, and our dinner had run late, so we didn't get a chance to get in there. But I will say that the one nice thing that Royal Caribbean did, since we were on a cruise on Veterans Day, they did a very nice, about a half hour, 45-minute show in the center of the ship. They have the kind of like the atrium area, if you will.
Yeah.
And they had some of their folks there carrying the flags. They had made this huge cake of the U.S. flag for everybody to have, but they talked about, the veterans and what the day was. They read a poem about Flanders Field, which is over in Europe. I've been to the cemetery. It's really neat, U.S. cemetery, but talking about that and how those folks are, unfortunately they've passed, but it was nice to recognize the folks who were veterans, and there were a lot of them on the ship, and a very nice thank you. And they with their flag bearers, they had the U.S. flag, the Canadian flag, and the British flag, which was neat. So that they did the national anthem for each of the countries. And I tell you, and kudos to the Americans, that when the young lady that was singing the national anthem started, everybody chimed in. It wasn't just her singing, it was everybody else, hand on the heart. Everybody understood what it meant and what Veterans Day means. So I have to say Royal Caribbean pulled that one off. And, I was glad to have a chance to see that. It was just really cool.
That's awesome. I'm glad that they did that. And it really goes to show that they've really put forth a little bit of effort in order to find out, more about their people, more about the passengers, and even specifically about the days that you're traveling. So that's good to know. Yeah. All right. And then let's make our way over to Charleston.
Charleston, South Carolina. Again, the weather was not the greatest. It was overcast still. It was just, there was a storm sitting on the whole East Coast, so that didn't help. What was nice, though, is that the market, their open air market, was only about 2 blocks from the ship. And with Lisa being on crutches a little bit, that helped. So we could walk there, walk around. There's a nice little restaurant that I had seen the month before that was close by. We could get a beer and lobster bisque, which was really nice. Morgan's, I believe it was. But it was nice to walk through the market and see the different vendors. And the big thing with that area is the straw baskets. And the men and women who have passed this tradition down, excuse me, where they're making the baskets there from local material. And if you're interested in that, ask them questions. Lisa makes baskets herself, and she stood there and talked to this woman for probably 15 to 20 minutes on how their baskets are different and how they weave them and what their materials are made of. I mean, the woman was working on was straw grass and loblolly pine needles, which was really cool. Yeah, they weave them in there and they'll hold up for a long time. But it was neat to see that and see the other vendors. In fact, I bought a basket for friends of mine for Christmas that is made in, I believe it's the Zulu tribe. They use colored wire and make these incredibly colorful baskets, and how it's made and how they're recycling the products. It was just really nice. And excuse me. But again, it being there during the week, it wasn't as crowded as, say, a weekend.
Okay.
Had it not been so overcast and crappy, we might have done one of the buggy rides. They have horse-drawn carriages down there that'll take, anywhere from 4 people to probably 8 or 12 people through the area and give you a tour. But unfortunately, with the weather, it's like, no, we're not going to get wet.
Yeah, and let's talk about the weather for just a second, because you guys had to speed your way back to Baltimore to get into Chesapeake Bay so that you could outrun a storm on the way there.
Yes.
So did anybody feel inconvenienced by that whole process, or was it just, hey, you know what, he just announced this to the rest of the ship, and maybe we're going to try and limit the stuff that we're going to do on the outside of the decks in order to, keep everything focused,
Yeah, there wasn't so much of an announcement. Kind of word spread pretty quick, and with having the internet on the ship, people were checking Facebook and some websites. So we knew the day before, they pretty much said they were coming in early. The biggest people that it inconvenienced were those in the casino, because soon as you come into the Chesapeake Bay, out of the
You can't gamble.
ocean, yeah, the casinos have to shut down. The shops that are on the ship have to shut down. But for me, I wasn't inconvenienced by that. I mean, it's still, we're doing stuff, and the bars were still open. If you wanted something to drink, there was activities going on. So yeah, it was just the people in the casino that probably cried, and it happens.
Well, not the people who still had their money with them, so that was good for them at least.
That's true. That's true.
So let's talk really quickly about the disembarkation process. How was that? How long did it take?
For us, actually, it wasn't bad. Because they tell you to have your suitcases outside of your room by 10:30 the night before.
Okay.
Now you can if you want, and they'll ask you to wait till later in the morning, maybe till about 8:30, 9 o'clock. But you can actually take your suitcase off with you, or was it earlier? Maybe it was earlier. You could take your suitcase with you, but for ease and convenience of having everything, they could take my bag off. So you put your bag outside your room at 10:30. And it's really cool because as I was looking down the corridor, all you saw were these suitcases, a big long row of suitcases, because you've got all these cabins there. So you put them out there at 10:30. We got off the ship. I think our time was 8:30. They check you back in through customs, show your passport, and wander on through, and you're good to go. They have you know what your bag number is because they give you tags. So like ours was in group 3, so they have a section well marked with, that's where all the bags from group 3 are. And I found my bags no problem because I have a couple extra little keychains hanging on it so it stands out. We found everybody else's without any problem, which was good. With having, again, a friend of mine with having her foot issue, we got a porter. He threw everything onto a cart, took us right out to our car. We were off the ship and into the car in less than 20 minutes, which was absolutely incredible. Well, it's a small port, but because everything's they're having people staged out by times, we got off without really any problem. It's like, check, check, check. There you go. Bye.
So
that worked out nice.
Or anything crazy like that?
No. And I've been in those crazy lines, and I've had it. The first cruise I went on, we came back into Boston. It took us a half hour to find my bag because somebody put my bag in the wrong group, and there was several hundreds of bags. In that ship, there was well over 2,500 people, and we could not find the bag. It took us a while. There was 4 of us in the group looking for it, plus somebody that worked on the ship trying to find my bag. So all right. Well, let's talk about post-vacation thoughts, okay? Well, I have something else that I forgot to mention to you, and I will share. While we were coming back from Charleston into Baltimore, they do what they call a ship's tour, where they take you around to different parts of the ship as a group. It was 20 of us. So I got to go up on the bridge. Okay. I got to see the back area of the kitchen, which was really cool, which is behind the My Time dining area. So we could see the whole kitchen area and how they do everything, because there's a lot of meals going out. That's going to be impressive. Got to see the laundry area, got to see the food storage area. They had plenty of booze on that ship. If we were stuck out there for a couple of days, everybody had been happy. Where else did we go? We went to the trash area, so we saw how they're very conscious about recycling and packing things and up. So it's a really cool tour. If you get a chance to do that, I highly recommend it, because it gets you a chance to kind of see the behind the scenes area of what goes on a ship. Did it cost you extra to do that, or was it just kind of a complimentary thing that they did? No, it was extra. It's like a regular excursion. It's just you're doing it while you're at sea. But yeah, I was glad I went on that. So, I mean, that sounds like something I would definitely at least want to try and do once, just to kind of get an idea of what the bridge is like, what the engine room might be like, what the laundry might be like, what all those things might be like behind the scenes, and how this massive, like in some cases, some of these cities, these floating cities, can stay afloat. It's got to be incredible. Yeah, it was really cool. Highly recommend it. Absolutely. I think I might just take you up on that offer. Because we're going to be going to the Caribbean in spring. And so I think, because my husband and I, he's more of the adventurous type. So he'll be the one that goes,
bungee jumping or skydiving or tubaing or whatevering, and I just want to make sure his insurance is paid up. And apart
That
from
is
that,
true. Very important.
I am a little bit older now, so I like to, you know, the shorter excursions, the museums, the stuff. I prefer that kind of ambiance to myself.
Yeah.
So just staying in the ship, enjoying, you know, a tour of the internal workings of the ship is something I think would be very educational, and I think it would be really kind of cool to at least experience it one time. So
Oh yes, definitely.
thank you for sharing that with me. All right, so let's talk about the takeaways from this. So as far as going to places like the Bahamas or Coco Cay and Port Canaveral or Charlotte, what are, or I'm sorry, not Charlotte, Charleston, what are some pros about going on a trip like this? What were the things to look forward to?
The biggest thing was just kind of, it's November, you just get a nice break, but you're getting a chance, one, to see another country, someplace that you may never get to again, which is nice. Get a chance to hang out with some friends. We kind of like the same things doing these cruises, and just having a chance to relax. You know, with a cruise, some people say, oh, it's really expensive. It's really not when you look at the fact that you get a nice room, your food's included, your basic drinks are included outside of the alcohol, the Coke, sodas, those are all extras, but everything's there, and you get a chance to just relax. You get entertained. If you want to go to all the shows, do all the activities, you're taking your kids, they've got a kid zone where you can dump them off. You know, with this ship, yeah, go away. They had a track up on the 11th deck that was nice. It was 4 laps around, was a mile, and you've got this great view. Now, the one day was overcast, but that's okay. You still could get outside and walk around. But it's kind of like a self-contained vacation. You can look at a vacation where, oh, I'm going to stay at a hotel, I got to eat out at restaurants, and everything that you're paying for it probably works out to about the same, but everything's kind of self-contained. And like I mentioned with the alcohol, and I'm not sure you want to touch on it here, they do have alcohol packages. Mm-hmm. Well, I since I don't drink as much as I did years ago, not that I was a super fish or anything, but I decided not to get that. And for me, that was okay, because if you look at the price of it, plus the gratuities and taxes that are added onto it, was going to come up for 8 days close to $500. Yeah. Well, I worked out the prices off of, because you have to put a credit card down so that if there's incidentals or if you put a alcoholic beverage on your room, I could kind of see, and I spent a max of $140 for the week, which was first 2 days I didn't even drink any alcohol because I wasn't into it. But they will run specials, which is a good thing. And then we found out that the bar down in the casino did mimosas for $2 between, I think it was 8 and 10 or 10 and noon. So my friend and I, we went down there and had 3 mimosas between us, and it didn't cost us a lot of money. So you can kind of be aware of that, but definitely check out the beverage packages. And really with alcohol, if you're going to drink a lot of alcohol and be, as I call, a fish, get the package. If not, you'll be surprised.
I will touch base on something. Usually there's different tiers of those packages. Sometimes there's like one that's like beers and wines, and other times there's one that's a little bit harder liquor, and then there's even one that's like a premium liquor package. But the thing that a lot of times, and share with me if this was the same with you too, with alcohol packages, if you want to purchase it, everybody in your room has to purchase it as well.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And so the 3 of us had talked about it, and it really wasn't going to be cost efficient. And then we're like, okay, let's not do it. So Royal Caribbean, about 4 years ago, had a package that was just beer and wine. Well, they got rid of that and made it where it was all free, beer, wine, and hard liquor. And I think in the future, I'll not get the package, which means they're not making as much money, but I don't need to drink like a fish.
Yeah.
But I'm not familiar with what other cruise lines do, but if you want to get sodas, they give you a nice cup for your package. If you want premium water, you can do that. So the websites are very good with all that information.
I think I might just take you up on that suggestion, because I don't know that everybody understands all the different beverage packages that are out there. I might actually do a video on that, I think. I might just follow up on that in the future. Because when we go and do some price comparisons with different cruise lines, we find some do unlimited drink packages and some say, okay, well, you are up to 6 per day or something like that you can have. There's other ones that are like, well, you could have certain things on some and you can't have others. And, you know, if you're a certain blood type, then you can have this. And if you have children or this color hair, you can have this.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of different things that are out there. You just have to kind of monitor and figure out kind of what it is as far as that goes. As far as any last minute value adds or cost savings or best practices, is there anything that you want to share with the students? Anything that fell into any of those things?
Nothing that I can think of now. Like talking about the alcohol package, Royal Caribbean the last couple of days will run some specials. You know, you buy a card and you get X amount of drinks. Yeah, fine and dandy, but I was comfortable with where I was. And it's like, okay, that means between two of us, if we split the cost, we're going to have to drink X amount of drinks. And I'm like, I can't drink that many in that many days. You know, it wasn't worth it. The big thing to keep in mind, I forgot to do it this time, was if you're getting beverages, whether it's alcohol, whatever, and you're going to the bar, have ones with you, $1 bills. You know, I always made sure I had ones with me. Normally I take about $50 worth, so I have them for tips. Yeah. And that way, it's kind of a nice thing to do. Yeah, they're getting, Royal Caribbean, for example, is collecting a gratuity, but that's still not a lot of money. And these folks don't get paid a lot for what they're doing. And they're working, you know, 12, 14 hours, some of them. So that's always nice to have, and kind of keep in mind too that, you know, have a little extra for your cabin steward and if you're doing my time dining. You know, sometimes 20, 40 bucks goes a long way to say thank you to those folks, especially if you're making a lot of special accommodations and requests of, oh, I need this and I need that. And you're running the poor person up and down the hallway, and, you know, kind of be mindful. It's a vacation. It's not, you're not going to a high class resort where, you know, everybody's catering to you, but, you know, think about those folks too. And they're all very nice. You know, I'd say good morning to them in the morning, good afternoon, how's your evening? You know, they want to make sure everything's right for you. So that's kind of their job. So
Absolutely. I agree 100%. Well, Fran, this is going to bring us to the end of our interview. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I think I learned a lot. So thank you so much for sharing your information with us. I really appreciate it. And I know my students do as well.
Oh, this has been great. This is kind of a neat thing to do.
Yeah, in fact, if you do end up taking another vacation, I'd love to get more information from you. If this was a fun experience for you, I'm sure my students would love to hear you come back, if that's okay.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. In fact, I have a cruise already scheduled for next year. We're leaving out of Baltimore, going to Boston, Portland, Bar Harbor, Halifax, and St. John. So yes, definitely September, but I'm sure I'll have something more coming up in the future, but gladly.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And to my students, if you want to receive notifications of new videos that are popping up on YouTube, ring the bell notification that you see on the side there, so that way you can be informed on those things. If you like this video, please give it a like. And definitely, if you haven't already done so, please subscribe. We definitely appreciate that. If you're listening to this on the podcast, please also rate this podcast. It does go a long way with iTunes as well. But in the meantime, should you have any questions or comments, let me know. I want to hear from you. Please send an email to me at scott@theprofessortravel.com. Until next time, make every one of your days a travel adventure. Thanks, everybody. Take care, and bye-bye.